The lock clicked. That was the sound that broke her. Not the cold ceremony, not the empty vows, not even the way he'd looked through her instead of at her when he said, "I do." It was the sound of her husband locking the door between them on their wedding night that finally shattered Vivian Monroe's last fragment of hope. She stood frozen in the guest bedroom of Sebastian Cross's Manhattan penthouse, still wearing her wedding dress, a $40,000 creation of French lace and silk that suddenly felt like a burial shroud. Her trembling fingers pressed against the mahogany door, feeling the vibration as his footsteps retreated down the marble hallway. Getting further away. Not coming back. Sebastian, her voice cracked on his name barely above a whisper. "Sebastian, please." Silence answered her, the kind of silence that echoed in expensive penthouses, bouncing off cold marble and colder hearts. Vivian's knees buckled. She slid down the door until she was crumpled on the floor, white silk pooling around her like a fallen cloud, and for the first time since her father had told her about the arrangement 3 weeks ago, she let herself cry. Not delicate tears, not the pretty crying you see in movies. These were the ugly, gasping sobs of a woman who had just realized that the nightmare she'd walked into had no exit door. She was 26 years old. She had a master's degree in art history. She had dreams of opening her own gallery someday, of traveling to Florence and Paris, of falling in love with someone who looked at her like she was the only person in the room. Instead, she was locked in a guest bedroom by a man who had paid $50 million for her hand in marriage and couldn't even pretend to want her for a single night. 3 weeks earlier, Vivian had been standing in her grandmother's hospital room when her father delivered the news that would destroy her life. Billionaire Monroe, Nana, as Vivian had called her since childhood, lay sleeping in the adjustable bed, her silver hair spread across the pillow like spun moonlight. The machines beeped their steady rhythm. The oxygen tube whispered its quiet hiss. And Vivian held her grandmother's papery hand, the same hand that had taught her to paint watercolors, that had braided her hair before school, that had wiped away tears and held her through every storm of her 26 years. The Alzheimer's had been stealing Billionaire piece by piece for 3 years now. Some days she recognized Vivian. Some days she thought Vivian was her own mother, dead for 40 years. Some days she just stared at the wall, lost in a fog that no amount of love could penetrate. But she was still here, still breathing, still Nana. "The facility is threatening to discharge her." Richard Monroe's voice was flat, exhausted. He'd aged 10 years in the past 6 months, his once handsome face now gaunt and gray. "We're 4 months behind on payments. The insurance stopped covering long-term memory care, and I've borrowed against everything we have left." Vivian looked up at her father, fear coiling in her stomach. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we're out of options." Richard couldn't meet her eyes. "The gallery is bankrupt. The house has 3 mortgages. Your mother's medical bills before she passed cleaned out our savings, and your grandmother's care costs $12,000 a month. We'll find a way. We always find a way." "There is a way." Richard finally looked at her, and what she saw in his eyes made her blood run cold. Guilt, desperation, and something that looked horribly like resignation. Sebastian Cross. The name meant nothing to her. Who? A businessman, tech industry. He's worth somewhere around $30 billion. Richard swallowed hard. "He approached me last month about an arrangement." "What kind of arrangement?" "He needs a wife. Something about his company's image, investors preferring stability. I don't know the details, and frankly, I didn't ask." Richard's voice broke. "He offered to pay off all our debts, every single one, and he'll cover your grandmother's care for the rest of her life. The best facility in the country, round-the-clock specialists, everything she needs." Vivian's hand tightened on her grandmother's. "In exchange for what?" "In exchange for you." The words hung in the air like a guillotine blade. You want me to marry a stranger? Vivian heard her own voice as if from far away. You want me to sell myself to some billionaire I've never met so he can, what? Display me like a trophy. I want you to save this family. Tears streamed down Richard's face. I know I have no right to ask. I know this is my fault, all of it. I made bad investments, trusted the wrong people, and now we're drowning. But your grandmother, he gestured helplessly at Alina's sleeping form. She raised us both, Vivian. She gave up everything for this family. And if we can't pay for her care, they'll move her to a state facility. You've seen those places. You know what happens to people like her in those places. Vivian knew. She'd done the research when the diagnosis first came, had visited facilities across the spectrum of cost and quality. The state-run homes were warehouses for the forgotten, underfunded, understaffed, places where patients sat in their own filth for hours and died alone in the night without anyone noticing until morning. She couldn't let that happen to Nana. She couldn't. What's he like? She whispered. This Sebastian Cross. Richard hesitated. I've only met him once. He's cold, businesslike, but he was very clear about the terms. A legal marriage, public appearances as needed, and complete financial security for you and your family. He said he wouldn't make any demands on you personally. What does that mean? I think it means he doesn't expect it to be a real marriage, just a legal arrangement. Richard wiped his eyes. I know it's not the life you wanted. I know you dreamed of something different, but maybe in time. Don't. Vivian's voice hardened. Don't try to make this into a fairy tale. If I do this, I'm doing it for Nana, not because I believe some heartless billionaire is going to fall in love with me. She looked at her grandmother, at the woman who had sacrificed everything for family, who had worked 3 jobs to put Richard through college, who had taken Vivian in when her mother was too sick to care for her and never once complained about the burden. Vivian Monroe deserved better than a state facility. She deserved dignity and comfort and someone who would hold her hand when she was scared and confused. If the price for that was Vivian's freedom, then so be it. Set up the meeting, Vivian said quietly. I'll marry him. Sebastian Cross looked exactly like what he was, a man who had frozen his heart so thoroughly that warmth had become a foreign concept. Vivian met him for the first time in his office on the 47th floor of Cross Tower, a gleaming monument to capitalism that dominated the Manhattan skyline. The space was all glass and steel and sharp angles, much like the man himself, dark hair cut with military precision, jaw that could have been carved from granite, eyes the color of winter storms. He didn't smile when she entered, didn't stand, didn't offer his hand or any of the basic courtesies that normal people extended to future spouses. He simply looked at her with those cold gray eyes and said, "You're smaller than I expected." Vivian's spine stiffened. Is that a problem? No, just an observation. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Sit. She remained standing. I'm not a dog. Something flickered in his expression, surprise perhaps, or the ghost of interest. No, you're not. He rose then, all 6'3" of him unfolding from behind the desk with the fluid grace of a predator. My apologies, please sit down. We have terms to discuss. Terms? Vivian lowered herself into the chair, keeping her back straight and her chin high. She refused to be intimidated, no matter how much her heart was racing. My father said you needed a wife for business purposes. I'd like to understand exactly what that means. Sebastian circled his desk, pouring 2 glasses of water from a crystal decanter. He handed her one without asking if she wanted it. I'm in the process of acquiring a company. The board is traditional. They've expressed concern about my personal life, or lack thereof. They believe a man approaching 40 who has never married is either hiding something or incapable of commitment. Are you hiding something? His jaw tightened. I'm hiding the fact that I have no interest in the institution of marriage or the complications that come with emotional entanglement. But that's not a story that plays well in boardrooms. So you need a prop, someone to smile for photographs and attend galas. I need a legal wife who can convincingly play the role of a devoted spouse in public. What happens in private is irrelevant. Vivian set down her water glass with careful precision. And what exactly happens in private, Mr. Cross? I need to understand what I'm agreeing to. For the first time, Sebastian's composure cracked, just slightly, a flicker of something almost human passing through his eyes. Nothing. That's the point. We will maintain separate bedrooms. I have no intention of consummating this marriage or demanding any physical obligations from you. You'll have your own suite, your own credit cards, your own life. The only requirement is that you appear with me at events and maintain the illusion of a happy marriage. For how long? 3 years minimum. After that, we can discuss divorce if you prefer, with a generous settlement. And my grandmother's care. Paid in full, regardless of what happens between us. I've already arranged for her transfer to the Hartwell Institute. It's the finest memory care facility in the country. Private room, specialized staff, the best specialists money can buy. He met her eyes. That's non-negotiable and not contingent on your behavior. Even if you walk out of this office right now, I'll still ensure she's cared for. Vivian blinked. Why? Because I'm not a monster. The words came out sharp, almost defensive. I may be asking you to enter into an unconventional arrangement, but I'm not going to hold an elderly woman's well-being hostage to ensure your compliance. That would be beneath me. It was the first glimpse of humanity she'd seen in him, and it confused her more than his coldness had. If you don't expect anything from me personally, she said slowly, why does it matter who you marry? You could hire an actress. You could find someone who actually wants this arrangement. Sebastian was quiet for a long moment, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. I could, he agreed. I considered it. But actresses come with entourages, with ambitions, with the constant risk of exposure. And women who actively seek arrangements like this, he shook his head. They come with expectations. They see dollar signs and start calculating how much they can extract. They play games. And you think I won't. I think you're here because you love your grandmother enough to sacrifice your own happiness for her care. That's not mercenary. That's loyal. His eyes softened almost imperceptibly. I understand loyalty. It's one of the few things I still respect. Vivian didn't know what to say to that. She'd expected a villain, a cartoon billionaire who'd cackle and make demands. Instead, she'd found something more complex, more troubling. A man who had clearly been hurt badly enough to wall off his entire heart, but who still, somewhere deep down, recognized the value of love even if he couldn't feel it anymore. What happened to you? The question slipped out before she could stop it. What made you like this? Sebastian's expression shuddered instantly, the brief window into his humanity slamming closed. That's not part of our arrangement. Do we have a deal or not? She should walk away. Every instinct screamed at her to run from this cold, damaged man and his cold, damaged world. But then she thought of Nana, of the hospital bed and the beeping machines and the slow, cruel theft of Alzheimer's. We have a deal, Vivian said. They were married 2 weeks later. If you're watching this story right now, I want you to know how much I appreciate you being here with me. Whether you're joining us from the United States, from Texas, New York, California, or anywhere in between, thank you for spending your time with Story Buddy. To my beautiful viewers in the United Kingdom, my wonderful Canadian family, and my incredible South African audience, your support means the world to me. This community we're building together, one story at a time, is something truly special. If you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe and hit that notification bell. It's completely free, and it helps us continue bringing you these stories that I pour my heart into creating. Drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from. I read every single one. Now let's get back to Vivian, because her story is just beginning. The wedding was everything money could buy, and nothing the heart could want. A cathedral filled with flowers Vivian hadn't chosen, a dress designed by someone she'd never met, guests who were strangers, Sebastian's business associates, board members, investors, all watching the spectacle with polite, calculating eyes. Vivian's father walked her down the aisle with tears streaming down his face. She didn't know if they were tears of grief or relief or shame. Maybe all three. Her grandmother wasn't there. The doctors had said the disruption would be too confusing for her, that she might not understand what was happening, that it could cause a setback. So Vivian walked toward her future husband without the one person whose blessing she actually wanted. Sebastian waited at the altar in a black Armani tuxedo, looking like he was attending a business meeting rather than his own wedding. When she reached him, he didn't smile, didn't take her hands, didn't whisper that she looked beautiful or give any indication that this moment meant anything at all. The officiant spoke words about love and commitment that rang hollow in the cavernous space. Sebastian repeated his vows in a monotone. Vivian's voice trembled through hers, fighting back tears that had nothing to do with happiness. When Sebastian slid the ring onto her finger, a flawless 5-carat diamond that she hadn't chosen and didn't want, his fingers were cold. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Sebastian leaned in for the obligatory kiss, and his lips barely brushed hers before he pulled away. The reception was 4 hours of smiling for cameras and making small talk with people who looked at her like she was a curiosity, the nobody who had somehow landed Sebastian Cross, the billionaire's new wife, the latest accessory. Nobody asked about her work, her interests, her dreams. They asked about Sebastian, always Sebastian. By the time the limousine delivered them to his penthouse, Vivian was exhausted in ways that went beyond physical. She'd smiled until her face hurt. She'd answered questions about her husband that she didn't know the answers to. She'd played the role of blushing bride while feeling like a fraud. And now, standing in the foyer of a penthouse that looked more like a museum than a home, she waited for whatever came next. Sebastian loosened his tie, walking past her toward the bar in the living room. Your suite is down the hall, 3rd door on the left. Your things have already been unpacked. If you need anything, there's a house phone that connects to the building's concierge service. That's it, Vivian heard the edge in her own voice. We just got married, and you're giving me directions to my room like I'm checking into a hotel. He poured himself a whiskey, not looking at her. What did you expect? A romantic evening, champagne and rose petals. I told you from the beginning what this would be. You told me it would be a business arrangement. You didn't tell me it would feel like being erased. She stepped toward him, her heels clicking on the marble floor. You haven't looked at me all day, really looked at me. Not once. There's nothing to look at. The words were flat, almost bored. You performed adequately. The guests believed the illusion. That's all that matters. I'm a person, Sebastian, not a performance. He finally turned, and what she saw in his eyes stole her breath. Not coldness, but something worse. Emptiness. A void where emotion should have been. I told you not to expect anything from me, he said quietly. I told you this wouldn't be real. If you wanted romance and connection and whatever fantasy you've been nurturing, you should have walked away when you had the chance. I couldn't walk away, you know that, my grandmother. Your grandmother is safe. That was the deal, and I've kept my end of it. He drained his whiskey in one swallow. Now I suggest you keep yours. Play the part in public, stay out of my way in private, and we'll both survive the next 3 years with minimal damage. And that's enough for you, surviving. Something flickered across his face, Pain, maybe, or the memory of pain, but it vanished so quickly she might have imagined it. It's all I know how to do. He set down his glass and walked toward the hallway that led to the master suite. At the threshold, he paused. "Good night, Mrs. Cross." Then he was gone, and a moment later she heard it. The lock clicking into place. The sound that broke her heart. The silence lasted exactly 5 days. 5 days of passing like ghosts in a museum. 5 days of cold breakfasts at opposite ends of a table meant for 12. 5 days of doors closing and footsteps retreating and conversations that never happened. On the 6th morning, Vivian snapped. She found Sebastian in the kitchen at 6 a.m., standing at the espresso machine in a charcoal suit, scrolling through his phone like she didn't exist, like she hadn't been living in his penthouse for nearly a week. "We need to talk." He didn't look up. "I have meetings." "I don't care." That made him pause. He raised his eyes slowly, one eyebrow arched in what might have been surprise. "Excuse me." "I said I don't care about your meetings." Vivian moved to stand directly in front of him, blocking his path to the door. "You can give me 10 minutes. I think I've earned that." "Earned it?" His voice was cold. "By doing what exactly?" "By agreeing to this farce. By giving up my entire life so you could have a prop for your board meetings. By spending 5 days in this mausoleum while you pretend I don't exist." Her voice rose despite her efforts to control it. "I'm not asking for romance, Sebastian. I'm not asking you to fall in love with me. I'm asking you to acknowledge that I'm a human being." Sebastian set down his coffee cup with deliberate precision. "What would you like me to acknowledge? That you're here. I'm aware. That we're married. The paperwork confirms it. What exactly do you need from me that you're not getting?" "Basic human decency would be a start." "I've been perfectly decent." "You've been invisible." Vivian's hands clenched at her sides. "You come home at midnight and leave at 6. You eat alone. You work alone. The only time I see you is when we pass in the hallway and you look through me like I'm made of glass." "That was the arrangement." "No, the arrangement was that we'd live separate lives in private, not that you'd treat me like a ghost in my own home." "This isn't your home." The words came out sharp, almost reflexive. "This is my home, you're a guest." The cruelty of it stole her breath. For a moment, she couldn't speak, could only stare at him while the words settled into her chest like shards of ice. "A guest," she repeated quietly. "That's what I am to you, after everything I gave up, after standing in that church and saying vows I didn't mean, after letting you buy me like a piece of furniture. I'm a guest." Something flickered in Sebastian's expression, guilt, maybe, or the recognition that he'd gone too far, but his voice remained steady. "I didn't mean." "Yes, you did." Vivian's voice hardened. "You meant every word, and that's fine. At least now I know exactly where I stand." She stepped aside, clearing his path to the door. "Go to your meetings, Mr. Cross. I wouldn't want to keep you from anything important." He hesitated. For just a moment, something almost human crossed his face, uncertainty, or maybe regret. But then the mask slid back into place. "This conversation is over." "No," Vivian said quietly as he walked past her. "This conversation is just beginning. You can ignore me all you want, but I'm not going anywhere. And eventually, you're going to have to deal with the fact that you married a person, not a prop." He paused at the door but didn't turn around. "I'll see you at the Henderson Gala on Saturday. Be ready by 7. Then he was gone. Vivian stood alone in the pristine kitchen, her heart pounding, her hands shaking. She'd known confronting him would be hard. She hadn't expected it to hurt this much. But she'd meant what she said. She wasn't going anywhere. And sooner or later, Sebastian Cross was going to learn that she wasn't as easy to ignore as he thought. The first person to treat Vivian like a human being in the Blackwood penthouse wasn't Sebastian. It was Mrs. Chen. The housekeeper was a small, elegant woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair and eyes that missed nothing. She'd worked for the Cross family for over 20 years, first for Sebastian's mother, then for Sebastian himself after his father's death. Vivian found her in the library on a Tuesday afternoon, dusting shelves that didn't need dusting. "You don't have to clean in here," Vivian said. "I was just looking for something to read." Mrs. Chen turned, and something in her expression softened. "You're lonely." It wasn't a question. Vivian felt her throat tighten. "I'm fine." "No, you're not." Mrs. Chen set down her dusting cloth. "You're trapped in a beautiful cage with a man who doesn't know how to be human anymore. That's not fine. That's survival." Vivian blinked. She hadn't expected such directness. You shouldn't talk about him like that." "Why not? It's true." Mrs. Chen moved to one of the leather armchairs, gesturing for Vivian to sit in the other. "I've known Sebastian since he was a boy. I watched him grow up. I watched him become this. What happened to him? Loss, betrayal, the slow education that everyone he trusted would eventually hurt him." Mrs. Chen's voice was sad but not pitying. His mother was the light of his life. When she died, something in him went dark, and then his father remarried that woman. "What woman?" "A gold digger, beautiful, charming, utterly without conscience. She pretended to love Sebastian's father while systematically draining his assets. When he died, she tried to take the company. Would have succeeded too if Sebastian hadn't fought her in court for 3 years." Vivian absorbed this information, so he learned not to trust anyone. He learned that love is a weapon people use against you. He learned that caring about someone gives them power to destroy you. Mrs. Chen leaned forward. But he also learned something else, something he doesn't even know he knows. "What?" "That he's capable of great love, great loyalty, great sacrifice." Mrs. Chen smiled slightly. "He just buried it so deep he's forgotten it exists." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I see the way he looks at you when you're not watching." Mrs. Chen stood, retrieving her dusting cloth. "He's curious, confused, intrigued. That's more emotion than I've seen from him in years. He treats me like I'm invisible." "He treats you like you're dangerous." Mrs. Chen moved toward the door. "There's a difference. Invisible things don't require walls. You do." She paused at the threshold. "Be patient with him, Mrs. Cross. The ice is thicker than you know, but it's already cracking." The second confrontation, the Henderson Gala. The Henderson Gala was everything Vivian had dreaded. 500 of Manhattan's elite, packed into a glittering ballroom, all of them watching her with barely concealed curiosity. The mysterious bride, the unknown woman who'd somehow captured Sebastian Cross. She dressed carefully, a midnight blue gown that hugged her curves, diamonds at her throat that Sebastian's assistant had delivered that afternoon with a note reading, "For tonight, nothing else. No signature, no warmth." Sebastian arrived at her door at exactly 7, wearing a tuxedo that probably cost more than her father's car. He looked her over with clinical assessment. "You'll do." "Wow." Vivian adjusted her earring, refusing to let him see how much the dismissal stung. "You really know how to make a girl feel special." "This isn't about feelings, it's about appearances." He offered his arm with the enthusiasm of a man offering to carry garbage. "Shall we?" The car ride was silent. The walk into the venue was a performance, his hand on the small of her back, her smile fixed like a mask, both of them playing their parts while a chasm of ice stretched between them. Inside, they worked the room like a well-oiled machine. Sebastian introduced her to investors, board members, the various power players whose approval he needed for his acquisition. Vivian smiled and nodded and said all the right things, playing the devoted wife while feeling like an actress in a play she hadn't auditioned for. It was exhausting. 2 hours in, she escaped to the terrace for air. The October night was cold, but the chill was a relief after the stifling heat of the ballroom. She'd been alone for maybe 3 minutes when a voice interrupted her solitude. "So you're the new Mrs. Cross." Vivian turned to find a woman standing in the terrace doorway, tall, blonde, stunning in a red dress that left little to the imagination. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "I'm sorry, have we met?" "Not formally. I'm Celeste Martin. Sebastian and I used to be close." The word dripped with implication. "Very close." Vivian felt her spine stiffen. "I see." "Do you?" Celeste moved closer, her heels clicking on the stone. "Because I'm not sure you understand what you've gotten yourself into. Sebastian doesn't do relationships. He does arrangements, temporary ones." Her smile sharpened. "You're not the first woman to think she could change him. You won't be the last." "I'm not trying to change him." "Then what are you trying to do?" Celeste's eyes swept over Vivian with dismissive assessment. "Because from where I'm standing, you look like a naive little girl playing dress-up in a world she doesn't understand. And from where I'm standing, you look like a woman who's bitter about being replaced." Vivian was surprised by the steel in her own voice. "I may not know much about Sebastian's world, but I know desperation when I see it. And whatever you came out here hoping to accomplish, it's not going to work." Celeste's expression flickered, surprise, then anger. "You think you're special. You think he actually cares about you. I think that's none of your business." "Sebastian Cross doesn't care about anyone." Celeste's voice rose. "He's incapable of it. He'll use you until you're no longer useful, and then he'll discard you like he discards everyone. You're nothing to him. A convenience. Eh?" "That's enough." Both women turned. Sebastian stood in the doorway, his expression carved from ice. "Sebastian," Celeste's voice shifted to something almost pleading. "I was just leaving." He stepped aside, gesturing toward the ballroom. "Now." For a moment, Celeste looked like she might argue. Then something in Sebastian's expression stopped her. She shot Vivian a final venomous glare and stalked past him into the party. Silence stretched between them. "I didn't need you to rescue me," Vivian said finally. "I know." Sebastian moved to stand beside her at the terrace railing, his eyes fixed on the city lights below. "You handled yourself well." Was she telling the truth? Were you too? "Briefly, years ago." His jaw tightened. "She wanted more than I was willing to give. It ended badly." "She seems to think it hasn't ended at all." "She's wrong." He turned to look at her, and something in his expression had shifted, some wall lowered, some barrier breached. "What she said about you being nothing to me, being a convenience. Isn't it true?" The question hung between them. Sebastian was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know," he admitted finally. "I thought it was. I thought this would be simple, a business arrangement, nothing more. But you're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone who would play the part and stay out of my way. Someone who wouldn't challenge me or question me or make me feel." He stopped, as if catching himself before revealing too much. "Someone easier to ignore. And instead, you got me." "Instead, I got you." His eyes met hers, and for just a moment she saw something behind the ice, something alive and uncertain and almost afraid. "I don't know what to do with you, Vivian. I don't know how to be whatever it is you need." "I don't need you to be anything." She turned to face him fully. "I just need you to stop treating me like an enemy. I'm not here to hurt you, Sebastian. I'm not here to take anything from you. I'm just trying to survive this situation the same as you are." "I know," his voice was quiet. "I know you are." "Then why do you keep pushing me away? Why do you lock doors and avoid conversations and act like spending 5 minutes with me is torture?" "Because it is torture." The admission seemed to cost him something. "Being around you, seeing you try so hard to find something good in this situation, Watching you refuse to give up on me even when I give you every reason to, it makes me feel things I don't want to feel." "What things?" "Things I buried a long time ago." He looked away, his profile sharp against the city lights. "When my mother died, I swore I would never let anyone get close enough to hurt me again. I built walls. I made rules. I convinced myself that isolation was safer than connection. And now you're here, inside the walls, and I don't know how to make you leave without destroying something I'm not sure I want to destroy." Vivian felt her heart beating too fast. "Sebastian." "Don't," he held up a hand. "Don't say anything kind. Don't make me hope for something I can't have. Just be patient with me, please." "I can be patient." "Good." He straightened, the mask sliding back into place, but not as firmly as before. "We should go back inside. People will talk." "Let them talk." He almost smiled. Almost. "Careful, Mrs. Cross. You're starting to sound like someone who doesn't care about appearances." "Maybe I'm learning from my husband." This time he did smile, just a flicker, just a ghost of what a smile could be. But it was there. "Perhaps you are." The breakthrough came on a rainy Tuesday night. Vivian was lying in bed, unable to sleep when she heard it, music drifting through the walls. Piano music, haunting and melancholy, notes falling like tears. She followed the sound through darkened hallways, past closed doors and empty rooms, until she reached a door at the end of the east wing that she'd never opened. Light spilled from beneath it, warm and golden. She knocked. The music stopped. "Sebastian." A long pause, then, "It's late, go back to bed." "I heard music. I didn't know you played." Another pause, longer this time. "Go back to your suite, Vivian." "No." The word hung in the air. She heard footsteps, then the door swung open. Sebastian stood in the doorway, his usual armor stripped away. He wore a simple gray t-shirt and dark pants, his feet bare, his hair disheveled. Behind him, she could see a library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a beautiful grand piano by the window. "What did you say?" "I said no." Vivian held his gaze. "I've spent 3 weeks tiptoeing around this penthouse, giving you space, respecting your boundaries, and all it's gotten me is more silence and more distance. So tonight I'm not going back to my suite. Tonight I'm standing here until you either talk to me or physically throw me out." Sebastian stared at her. "You're serious?" "Completely." For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Sebastian stepped aside. "Come in." The library was warm and beautiful, filled with leather armchairs and soft lighting and the smell of old books. It felt lived in, loved, completely at odds with the cold aesthetic of the rest of the penthouse. "This was my mother's room," Sebastian said quietly, moving toward the piano. "She designed it when I was young. It's the only space I haven't changed." "It's beautiful." She was beautiful. His fingers brushed the piano keys without pressing them. "She taught me to play when I was 7. Said music was the only honest language, that people could lie with words but not with music." "Will you play something for me?" He hesitated. "I don't play for people." "I'm not people, I'm your wife." Something shifted in his expression, surprise maybe, or the faintest hint of amusement. "That's a low blow." "I'm desperate. 3 weeks of silence makes a woman resort to extreme measures." He studied her for a long moment, his eyes searching her face for something she couldn't identify. Then he sat on the piano bench and began to play. The piece was Chopin, Nocturne in C-sharp minor, she recognized after a few bars. Haunting and melancholy, full of grief and longing and the kind of pain that doesn't fade with time. When he finished, silence settled over them like a blanket. "You play like you understand loss," Vivian said softly. "I understand loss better than most things." His hands remained on the keys, but he didn't play. After my mother died, music was the only thing that made sense. Everything else felt like lies. The condolences, the sympathy, the promises that it would get easier. But the music was honest. The music didn't pretend everything was okay. How old were you? 16. Old enough to understand what I was losing, young enough to be destroyed by it. And your father? Sebastian's jaw tightened. My father remarried within a year. A woman named Diana, 30 years younger, beautiful in the way that expensive things are beautiful. She told him she loved him, told him she wanted to help him heal. What she actually wanted was his money and his company. What happened? She almost got it. After he died, heart attack 2 years later, she produced a will that left everything to her. Turned out she'd been slowly isolating him, turning him against his family, manipulating him while he was grieving. Sebastian's voice was flat, recounting facts rather than emotions. I spent 3 years in court proving the will was forged. 3 years of lawyers telling me I'd probably lose. 3 years of watching everything my family built nearly stolen by a woman who saw love as a weapon. But you won. I won the company. I lost everything else. He finally looked at her. My ability to trust, my belief that people could be good, my faith that caring about someone wouldn't be used against me. Diana taught me that love is just another form of manipulation, a tool people use to get what they want. Not everyone. Everyone. The word was sharp. My mother loved my father and it killed her, not the cancer but the years of putting his needs before hers, sacrificing her health for his career, supporting his dreams while ignoring her own. My father loved Diana and she used it to destroy him. Every relationship I've ever seen has been a transaction at best, a weapon at worst. And us, Vivian asked quietly, what are we? Sebastian was silent for a long moment. I don't know, I thought we'd be simple, a clean transaction, nothing more but you. He shook his head. You don't behave like a transaction, you push back, you ask questions, you refuse to accept the role I've assigned you. Is that bad? It's terrifying. The admission seemed to surprise him as much as her. I've spent years building walls to keep people out, and you're standing in my mother's library at midnight asking me to play piano and I'm actually doing it. I don't know what that means. Maybe it means the walls have cracks. Maybe it means I'm losing my mind. Vivian moved to sit on the piano bench beside him, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from his body. Or maybe it means you're still human, despite your best efforts. He turned to look at her, and something in his expression had shifted, the ice thawing just slightly to reveal something vulnerable underneath. You should go back to bed, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Is that what you want? No, the word came out before he could stop it. He closed his eyes as if frustrated by his own honesty. No, I don't want you to go, and that's exactly why you should. Sebastian. Don't, he stood abruptly, putting distance between them. Don't look at me like I'm something worth saving. Don't make me hope for things I can't have. I've told you what I am. I've told you why. If you stay, if you keep pushing, if you keep being kind when I don't deserve it. What happens if I stay? I might start to need you. The words were barely a whisper, and I can't need anyone. I can't give anyone that power over me again. Needing someone isn't the same as giving them power to hurt you. Isn't it? No. Vivian stood, moving toward him slowly. Needing someone means trusting them enough to be vulnerable. It means believing they'll catch you when you fall. It means accepting that love requires risk and deciding the risk is worth it. And if it's not, if they leave or betray you or die, then you grieve, and eventually you try again. Because the alternative, she gestured at the beautiful, empty penthouse around them, is this. Being alone in a museum, playing piano for no one, convincing yourself that isolation is safer than connection. It is safer. It's not living. She stopped in front of him, close enough to touch. I'm not asking you to love me, Sebastian. I'm not asking for promises or commitment or anything you can't give. I'm just asking you to let me in, just a little. Just enough to prove that you're still capable of human connection. And if I can't, then I'll still be here. She reached out, letting her hand rest on his chest, feeling his heart pound beneath her palm. Patient, stubborn, refusing to give up on you no matter how many walls you build. Sebastian stared at her, conflict written across his features. She could see him wanting to pull away, to retreat behind his defenses, to lock the door and pretend this conversation never happened. But he didn't move. You're going to regret this, he said finally. Maybe, but I'd rather regret trying than regret giving up. Slowly, hesitantly, his hand came up to cover hers. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to let someone in without losing myself. Then we'll figure it out together, she smiled slightly. I hear I'm a good teacher. You're something, he muttered. I'm not sure what. I'm your wife, for better or worse, remember. I remember. His thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. I just didn't expect worse to include midnight confrontations and emotional ambushes. Surprise, she grinned. Now, are you going to play me another song, or do I have to stage another intervention? Despite everything, the walls, the fear, the years of carefully maintained distance, Sebastian laughed. A real laugh, rusty with disuse but genuine. One more song, he said, then you go to bed. Deal. He sat back down at the piano and she settled beside him on the bench. When he began to play, it was something lighter, Debussy, she thought, with its shimmering cascades and gentle harmonies. And for the first time since her wedding night, Vivian felt something that might have been hope. Thank you so much for being here with us, beautiful souls. If this story is touching your heart, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel. We post new stories every single week, and each one is crafted with love for people exactly like you. To everyone watching from the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, and South Africa, and to our viewers around the world, your support is what makes Story Buddy possible. When you subscribe, you're joining a family that believes in love, in second chances, and in the power of stories to heal our hearts. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think of Sebastian's story. Do you think Vivian can break through his walls? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Now let's continue. The weeks that followed were a careful dance of advance and retreat. Sebastian didn't transform overnight. His walls were too thick for that. But the library became their meeting ground, a neutral space where the rules of their arrangement seemed to soften. He played piano while she listened. They talked about books, art, music, safe topics that didn't require vulnerability. Gradually, the conversations grew deeper. He told her about his mother's final months, about the helpless rage of watching someone you love fade away. She told him about her grandmother's Alzheimer's, about the particular cruelty of a disease that stole memories while leaving the body intact. She doesn't always know me anymore, Vivian admitted one evening, curled in one of the leather armchairs while Sebastian played something soft and melancholy. Sometimes she thinks I'm my mother. Sometimes she thinks I'm a stranger. Last week, she asked the nurses who the strange woman was who kept visiting her. Sebastian's hand stilled on the keys. That must be incredibly painful. It is, but then she'll have a clear day and she'll tell me stories about my grandfather, about the war, about falling in love. And for a few hours, she's my Nana again. Vivian wiped her eyes. Those hours are worth all the hard days. You love her very much. She's all I have left. The words came out raw. My mother's gone, my father's. Well, you've met my father. Nana is the only person who's ever loved me without conditions, without wanting anything in return. Sebastian was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood from the piano and crossed to her chair, kneeling beside her. "I want to show you something." He led her through the penthouse to a room she'd never entered, his private office. But instead of heading for the desk, he guided her to a small door she hadn't noticed. "What's in there?" "Something I've been working on." He opened the door, revealing a staircase leading down. "Follow me." The stairs ended in an underground garage, but it had been converted into something else entirely. Construction materials and architectural plans covered every surface. A large model sat in the center of the space, showing what appeared to be a brownstone building. "What is this?" "A gallery." Sebastian's voice was carefully neutral. "In the West Village. I bought it 6 weeks ago." Vivian's breath caught. "A gallery? You mentioned wanting to open one several times during our conversations." He moved to the model, gesturing at the tiny details, the skylights, the exhibition spaces, the built-in lighting systems. "The building is solid. The location is excellent. I've had architects working on renovation plans. It could be ready in 6 months." "Sebastian," her voice broke, "I don't understand." "What's to understand? You gave up your dreams to marry me. That doesn't mean you should give up everything you are." He finally met her eyes. "I know I've been difficult. I know this isn't what you wanted from marriage, from life. But I can do this. I can give you this." "Why?" "Because you deserve something good." The admission seemed to cost him something. "Because watching you try so hard to find joy in this situation while I've given you nothing makes me feel like a monster. Because—" He stopped, frustration crossing his face. "Because I don't know how to give you what you actually need, so I'm trying to give you what I can." Vivian stared at him, at this impossible, infuriating, complicated man who built walls with one hand and offered gifts with the other. "You think I need a gallery. I think you need a purpose, something that's yours, something I can't take away." "What I need," she stepped closer, forcing him to meet her eyes, "is for you to stop treating love like a transaction. You can't buy your way out of connection, Sebastian. You can't substitute buildings for vulnerability." His jaw tightened. "I'm not trying to buy anything." "Yes, you are. You're trying to give me enough that I won't ask for more, enough that I'll stop pushing, enough that you can keep your walls intact while still feeling like you've held up your end of some invisible bargain." "That's not." "It is." She took his hands, feeling him tense at the contact. "I appreciate the gallery, truly. It's the most thoughtful thing anyone has ever done for me, but it doesn't change what I actually want." "And what do you want?" "You," the word hung between them. "Not your money, not your buildings, not your carefully calculated kindness. You, the man behind the walls, the man who plays piano at midnight and talks about his mother with tears in his eyes. The man who's so terrified of being hurt that he'd rather be alone forever than risk caring about someone." Sebastian's expression fractured, walls crumbling, fear and longing battling for dominance. "You don't know what you're asking." "I'm asking you to try, that's all, just try. And if I try and fail, if I hurt you, if I can't be what you need, then at least we'll know." She squeezed his hands. "At least we won't spend the next 3 years circling each other like strangers, wondering what might have been." Silence stretched between them. She could feel his pulse racing beneath her fingers, could see the war playing out behind his eyes. "I don't know how to do this," he said finally. "Neither do I, but I'm willing to learn if you are." Another long pause, then slowly Sebastian nodded. "Okay. Okay. I'll try." The words came out rough, uncertain. "I can't promise I'll succeed. I can't promise I won't retreat behind my walls when things get hard, but I'll try. That's all I'm asking." He pulled her into an embrace, awkward, unpracticed, like he'd forgotten how to hold another person. But his arms were warm, and when she rested her head against his chest, She could hear his heart beating fast. "The gallery is still yours," he murmured into her hair. "That wasn't just about avoiding vulnerability. I actually wanted to give you something." "I know. And I'm not good at this, at feelings. I know that too. But I'm going to try." He pulled back enough to look at her. "For you, I'm going to try." Vivian smiled through the tears. She hadn't realized she was crying. That's a good start. The next obstacle came from an unexpected direction. Marcus Chen was Sebastian's business partner and oldest friend, the only person, according to Mrs. Chen, who had permission to tell Sebastian when he was being an idiot. He arrived at the penthouse on a Saturday afternoon, letting himself in with a familiarity that suggested years of history. Vivian was in the library when she heard voices, Sebastian's low tones and another man's louder, more animated speech. She moved toward the living room, stopping when she heard her name. "Can't be serious about this." Marcus's voice was incredulous. "You married her because you needed a prop, Sebastian, a prop, and now you're telling me you have feelings for her." "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to. I've known you for 20 years. You don't build galleries for people you don't care about. You don't spend your evenings playing piano while your wife listens. You don't look at someone the way you looked at her at the Henderson Gala unless something has changed." Silence. "Then, it's complicated. It's insane is what it is." Marcus's voice dropped. "Do you remember what happened with Diana? Do you remember what loving someone cost you?" "Vivian isn't Diana." "How do you know? You've known her for 2 months. 2 months. And you're already letting her inside your walls, already giving her access to parts of yourself you've kept locked away for years. What happens when she betrays you? When she takes everything you've given her and uses it against you?" "She won't." "You don't know that. You can't know that. You said the same thing about Diana, and she nearly destroyed you." Vivian had heard enough. She stepped into the living room, her chin high. "He's right to be cautious." Both men turned to stare at her. "You don't know me, Mr. Chen. You have every reason to be suspicious." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "You were listening." "I live here. Hard not to overhear conversations that happen in my living room. The penthouse belongs to Sebastian. And I'm his wife." Vivian moved to stand beside Sebastian, close enough to feel his tension. "Which means this is my home too, whether you like it or not." Marcus crossed his arms. "I'm trying to protect my friend." "From what? From someone who actually wants to know him. From someone who sits with him while he plays piano and listens to stories about his mother." Vivian's voice hardened. "I'm not Diana. I'm not here for his money. I don't care about his money. I'm not playing some long game to steal his company. I married him because it was the only way to save my grandmother's life, and I stayed because I found something worth staying for." Pretty words. Diana had pretty words too. "Marcus," Sebastian's voice was sharp, "that's enough." "It's not enough. It's not nearly enough." Marcus turned to his friend. "You're the smartest man I know, Sebastian. You built an empire from nothing. You beat Diana in court when everyone said it was impossible. But you have one weakness, one fatal flaw that almost destroyed you once and will destroy you again if you're not careful." "And what's that?" "You want to believe people are good." Marcus's voice was almost gentle. "Despite everything that's happened to you, some part of you still hopes that love is real, that trust is possible, that opening up to someone won't end in devastation. Diana exploited that hope. And now this woman is exploiting it too." "I'm not exploiting anything." Vivian stepped forward. "I'm standing here in this room telling you honestly that I care about your friend. Not his money, not his company. Him. The broken, difficult, infuriating man who locks doors and plays Chopin and doesn't know how to let anyone in." "Why?" Marcus demanded. "Why would you care about that? What do you get out of it?" "Connection, companionship. The chance to build something real with someone who's just as scared of being hurt as I am. She met his eyes. I know you don't trust me. I know you have no reason to, but I'm asking you, no, I'm telling you that I'm not your enemy. I'm not here to hurt Sebastian. I'm here because, somehow, in the middle of this insane arrangement, I started to fall in love with him. The words landed like a bomb. Sebastian went rigid beside her. Marcus's expression shifted from hostility to shock. You what? Sebastian's voice was barely audible. Vivian's heart pounded. She hadn't meant to say it, not like this, not in front of an audience. But it was out now and she wouldn't take it back. I'm falling in love with you. She turned to face Sebastian. I don't know when it started or how or why. I just know that when I hear you play piano, something in my chest aches. When you smile, really smile, I feel like I've won something precious. When you trust me with pieces of your past, I want to protect them with everything I have. Vivian, I'm not asking you to say it back. I'm not asking for anything except what you've already given me, the chance to try. But I'm done pretending this is just an arrangement. I'm done acting like I don't care whether you're happy or sad or lonely. I care, more than I expected to. More than I knew I could. Silence filled the room. Marcus watched them both, his hostility fading into something more complicated. Sebastian stared at her like she'd spoken in a foreign language. You love me. I'm falling in love with you. There's a difference. Is there? Yes, love implies certainty. Falling implies I'm still in motion, still figuring it out, still terrified of hitting the ground. She almost smiled. Sound familiar? He exhaled shakily. I don't know how to respond to that. You don't have to respond. I just needed you to know. She glanced at Marcus. Both of you, I'm not playing games. I'm not plotting betrayal. I'm just a woman who fell for the wrong man at the wrong time and is too stubborn to give up. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, surprising everyone including himself, he laughed. Well, that's not what I expected. What did you expect? Denials, defensiveness, the usual deflection. He looked at Sebastian. She's either the best actress I've ever met or completely sincere. She's sincere. Sebastian's voice was rough. I've been watching her for 2 months. She can't lie to save her life. Her face gives everything away. Hey, Vivian protested. It's true, when you're annoyed, your left eye twitches. When you're sad, you bite your lower lip. When you're lying, which is rare, you can't meet my eyes. He turned to face her fully. Right now, you're terrified. Your hands are shaking. Your voice trembled on the word love, but you're not lying. No, I'm not. Sebastian reached out, taking her trembling hands in his. I don't know if I can say it back. I don't know if I'm capable of that anymore. But I know that when you're not here, I notice. I know that your voice is the first thing I want to hear in the morning. I know that the thought of you leaving, of this arrangement ending, makes me feel something I haven't felt in years. What? Fear? He squeezed her hands. The kind of fear that means something matters. The kind of fear I swore I'd never feel again. Vivian's eyes filled with tears. Sebastian. I'm not ready to say the words. I may never be ready. But I can tell you this, I'm not falling. I've already fallen. I just didn't realize it until you said it first. Behind them, Marcus cleared his throat. I'm going to give you two some privacy. He moved toward the door, then paused. Sebastian. Yeah. I'm sorry for what I said, for assuming the worst. He glanced at Vivian. She's not Diana, I can see that now. No, she's not. Marcus nodded and left, closing the door softly behind him. And in the quiet of the living room, Sebastian pulled Vivian into his arms and held her like he never wanted to let go. The phone call came on a Tuesday afternoon. Vivian was at the gallery, overseeing the installation of a new lighting system, when her phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. Mrs. Cross. This is Dr. Patel from Hartwell Institute. I'm calling about your grandmother." The world tilted. "What's wrong? Is she okay?" "She had a stroke this afternoon. She's stable now, but we need you to come as soon as possible. There are decisions to be made about her care." Vivian was in a taxi within minutes, her hands shaking as she called Sebastian. "Vivian," his voice was sharp with concern. "What's wrong?" "Nana had a stroke. I'm on my way to Hartwell." "I'll meet you there." "You don't have to." "I'll meet you there," and he hung up. She arrived at the facility 45 minutes later, her heart pounding with fear. The nurses directed her to a private room where Alina lay connected to machines, her face slack, her breathing shallow. "Nana," Vivian took her grandmother's hand, feeling how cold and fragile it was. "Nana, I'm here." No response. Alina's eyes remained closed, her chest rising and falling with mechanical regularity. The doctor appeared, a kind-faced woman in her 50s who spoke with gentle professionalism about stroke protocols and recovery odds and the complications of Alzheimer's patients. "The stroke was relatively minor," Dr. Patel explained, "but her cognitive decline has accelerated significantly. She may recover some function with therapy, but I have to be honest with you, Mrs. Cross, the combination of the stroke and the Alzheimer's means we're looking at a significant reduction in her quality of life." "What does that mean?" "It means she may not regain full consciousness, and even if she does, she likely won't be the same person you remember." Dr. Patel's voice was gentle. "I know this is difficult to hear. I'm so sorry." Vivian couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The room blurred as tears overwhelmed her. She was still crying when Sebastian arrived. He didn't hesitate, didn't ask questions, didn't wait for permission. He simply crossed the room and pulled her into his arms, holding her while she sobbed against his chest. "I'm here," he murmured into her hair. "I've got you, whatever you need." "She's dying," the words tore out of her. "She's dying and I can't stop it." "I know, I'm so sorry. I thought we had more time. I thought the facility, the specialists, the care, I thought it would give us more time." "It did give you more time." Sebastian pulled back enough to look at her. 4 months. 4 months she's been in the best facility in the country, with the best care, surrounded by people who treat her with dignity. 4 months she's had because of what you sacrificed. It's not enough. It's never going to be enough. No, it's not. His eyes were bright with emotion, grief for her, grief for Alina, grief for the mother he'd lost too young. But you gave her every possible chance. You gave up your dreams, your freedom, your whole life to ensure she had comfort and peace. That's not nothing, Vivian, that's love. She collapsed against him again, crying until she had no tears left. And through it all, Sebastian held her, solid and warm and present in a way she hadn't known he could be. The days that followed were a blur of hospital visits and difficult conversations. Alina drifted in and out of consciousness, occasionally opening her eyes but rarely recognizing anyone. The doctors spoke of comfort care, of managing expectations, of the slow process of letting go. Sebastian was there every day. Not just visiting but staying, canceling meetings, ignoring phone calls, sitting by Alina's bedside and reading aloud from books she'd mentioned loving. He held Vivian's hand through conversations with doctors. He made sure she ate when she forgot to. He caught her when she stumbled and lifted her when she fell. "You don't have to do this," Vivian told him one night as they sat together in the dim hospital room. "You barely knew her. She matters to you, that's enough. But your work will survive without me for a few weeks." He squeezed her hand. "This is where I need to be." "Why?" He was quiet for a long moment, watching Alina's sleeping face. "Because my mother died alone. My father was at a business dinner. The nurses called him, but by the time he got there, she was gone." His voice was rough. "She shouldn't have been alone. No one should die alone. Vivian's heart broke a little more. Sebastian. I couldn't save my mother. I couldn't be there for her, but I can be here for you. I can make sure you don't go through this alone. He turned to look at her. Let me do this, please. She didn't have words, so she just leaned into him, letting his warmth anchor her in a world that seemed to be falling apart. Eleanor woke up on a Thursday morning. The nurses called Vivian immediately, and she rushed to the facility with Sebastian close behind. When they reached the room, Eleanor was sitting up in bed, her eyes clear for the first time in weeks. Vivian, her voice was weak but present. My sweet girl. Nana, Vivian rushed to her side. You're awake, how do you feel? Tired, Eleanor's gaze drifted to Sebastian, who hung back near the door. And who is this? This is Sebastian, my husband. Husband? Eleanor's eyebrows rose. When did that happen? A few months ago. I told you, remember, at the wedding. I remember, pieces. Eleanor's eyes narrowed, studying Sebastian with the sharp assessment that had always been her trademark. Come here, young man, let me look at you. Sebastian approached slowly, something like uncertainty in his expression. He stopped beside the bed, letting Eleanor examine him. You're the cold one, Eleanor said finally, the billionaire who doesn't believe in love. Sebastian's jaw tightened. Mrs. Monroe. Call me Eleanor or Nana if you prefer. Her hand reached out, surprisingly strong, gripping his wrist. My granddaughter loves you. Did you know that? Yes, she told me. And do you love her? Sebastian's eyes found Vivian's across the hospital bed. Something moved in his expression, fear and hope, and the kind of vulnerability that had terrified him his whole life. Yes, he said quietly, I do. Eleanor's face transformed, a smile breaking through the exhaustion and confusion, lighting up features that had been slack with illness. Good, she released his wrist, patting his hand. She deserves someone who loves her, someone who will be there when things get hard. Her eyes drifted. My Harold was like that, stubborn as a mule but loyal to the bone. Are you loyal, Sebastian Cross? To her, absolutely. Then you'll do. Eleanor's grip on Vivian's hand tightened. Be happy, sweetheart. Promise me you'll be happy. I promise, Nana. Good. Eleanor's eyes fluttered closed. Good. She drifted back to sleep, a smile still lingering on her face. Eleanor passed away 3 weeks later. It was peaceful, a quiet slipping away in the early hours of the morning, with Vivian holding one hand and Sebastian holding the other. The nurses said she never woke up, but in the last moment, her fingers tightened around both of theirs, as if she knew they were there. The funeral was small and private, nothing like the spectacle of Vivian's wedding. Just family, a few friends, and the staff from Hartwell who had cared for Eleanor in her final months. Sebastian stood beside Vivian through all of it, solid and present, catching her when she stumbled, lifting her when she fell. She would have liked you, Vivian said that night, as they lay together in what had finally become their shared bedroom, if she'd had more time to know you. She saw enough. Sebastian pulled her closer, enough to give me her blessing, enough to trust me with you. Do you really love me? I told you I did. I know, but I need to hear it again. I need to know it wasn't just something you said for her benefit. Sebastian shifted, pulling back enough to look at her. His eyes were soft in a way they never used to be. The ice finally melted, the walls finally down. I love you, Vivian Cross, not because you're beautiful or smart or kind, though you're all of those things. I love you because you refused to give up on me, because you saw something worth saving when I'd convinced myself there was nothing left. Because you walked into my cold, empty life and filled it with warmth and music and hope. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Sebastian, I love you because you taught me that love isn't a weapon, it's a gift. I love you because when I imagine the future now, you're in every picture. I love you because the thought of living without you feels like going back to the dark, and I never want to be in the dark again." She kissed him, soft and desperate and full of all the words they'd never said. He kissed her back with years of loneliness and months of growing hope, and the fierce, fragile promise of something new beginning. "I love you too," she whispered against his lips. "I love you so much." "I know," he held her tighter. "I know you do. Thank you for staying with us through this emotional moment." If you're feeling moved by Alina, Vivian, and Sebastian's story, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button and join our Story Buddy family. To my beautiful viewers in the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, and South Africa, you are the reason I keep creating these stories. Your comments, your support, your love for these characters, it means more than you'll ever know. We're almost at the end of Vivian and Sebastian's journey, and I promise you, the best is yet to come. Stay with me just a little longer. 1 year later. The gallery opening was everything Vivian had ever dreamed. 300 people filled the space she'd designed, admiring the artwork she'd curated, celebrating the launch of Monroe Gallery with champagne and genuine enthusiasm. Critics from major publications had attended. Collectors had already purchased several pieces. The night was, by every measure, a complete success. But Vivian barely noticed any of it. She was too busy watching Sebastian across the room, talking animatedly with a group of young artists she'd invited, artists he'd never have given the time of day a year ago. He was different now, softer at the edges, quick to laugh, slow to anger, genuinely interested in the people around him. He still had his walls, of course. He still retreated sometimes, still struggled to express emotions that came easily to others. But he kept trying, kept showing up, kept proving day after day that the heartless billionaire she'd married was just a mask, and underneath it was a man capable of deep, transformative love. "He's come a long way," Marcus said beside her. "He has, we both have. You know, when I confronted you in that living room, I was certain you were another Diana, certain you'd destroy him." Marcus shook his head. "I've never been happier to be wrong. I wasn't sure I'd prove you wrong. Some days I thought he'd never let me in. But you kept trying." "I kept trying." Across the room, Sebastian caught her eye. His face lit up, that unguarded smile that still made her heart flutter, and he excused himself to cross to her side. "You're staring at me," he said. "I'm admiring my husband. There's a difference. Your husband is the luckiest man alive." He pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Have I told you how proud I am of you? This gallery is extraordinary." "You've told me multiple times. I'm keeping count." "Good, I plan to keep telling you until you believe it." He reached into his pocket. "I have something for you." "Sebastian, you've already given me so much." "This is different." He pulled out a small velvet box. "I know we're already married. I know the ceremony already happened. But that wedding, it wasn't real. It wasn't about love or commitment or any of the things it should have been about." He opened the box, revealing a ring, not the gaudy diamond from their wedding, but something simpler. An antique setting with a modest sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds. "This was my mother's," he said quietly. "She gave it to me before she died, told me to give it to someone worthy." His eyes met hers. "I never thought I'd find anyone worthy. But then you walked into my life and refused to leave, even when I did everything I could to push you away." "Sebastian," her voice broke. "Marry me again." The words came out rough, unsteady. "Not because of business deals or financial arrangements. Marry me because I love you, because I can't imagine my life without you, because you found the cracks in my walls and filled them with light." Vivian took the ring with trembling fingers. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, replacing the cold diamond she'd never wanted, and kissed her with all the emotion he'd kept locked away for so many years. Around them, the gallery burst into applause. Guests who'd witnessed the proposal, friends who'd watched their journey, Marcus wiping away tears he'd deny later. But Vivian barely heard any of it. All she heard was Sebastian's voice, whispering against her lips. "I love you today, tomorrow, forever." And she believed him. 5 years later, the beach house was chaos in the best possible way. Vivian sat on the deck, watching Sebastian chase their 3-year-old daughter across the sand, both of them shrieking with laughter. Elena, named for the grandmother who had brought them together, had her father's dark hair and her mother's stubborn spirit. Inside, their 8-month-old son, William, was napping in his bassinet, watched over by Marcus and Mrs. Chen, who had become honorary grandparents. 5 years since that terrible wedding night. 5 years since a locked door and cold words and tears that had seemed like the end of everything. Now here they were, married for real, parents of 2 beautiful children, building a life neither of them had dared to dream of. Sebastian collapsed onto the deck chair beside her, breathless and grinning. "Your daughter cheats at tag. She's 3, she doesn't know the rules. She knows them, she just ignores them." He caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm, like her mother. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You absolutely do." But he was smiling. "Have I told you today how much I love you?" "Only twice, you're slacking." "Then let me fix that." He pulled her close. "I love you, Vivian Cross. I love our daughter. I love our son. I love this life we've built together. And I love who I've become because of you." The heartless billionaire reformed. The man who locked a door on his wedding night and has spent every day since trying to make up for it. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Do you ever regret it, agreeing to marry me?" "Not for a single second," she kissed him softly. "Because that locked door led us here, and I wouldn't trade this for anything. Even on the hard days. Especially on the hard days, because we face them together now." Little Elena came running up the stairs. "Mommy, Daddy, can we get ice cream?" "After dinner," Sebastian said. "But I want it now. And I wanted a quiet afternoon." He scooped her up, blowing raspberries on her cheek until she dissolved into giggles. "We don't always get what we want, little one, but sometimes we get something better." He caught Vivian's eye over their daughter's head, and the love in his gaze took her breath away, even now, even after everything. The heartless billionaire had a heart after all. And what he did on their wedding night, the locked door, the cold rejection, the tears, had become the first chapter of the greatest love story either of them had ever known. And that, my beautiful friends, is the story of Vivian and Sebastian, of locked doors and open hearts, of walls that crumbled and love that bloomed. Thank you for watching until the very end. Thank you for being part of our story buddy family. Thank you for believing, like I do, that even the coldest hearts can learn to love. If this story touched you, please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that love is worth fighting for. To my viewers in the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, and South Africa, and to everyone watching from around the world, you make this channel what it is. Drop a comment telling me your favorite confrontation scene. Was it the one with Marcus, the terrace at the gala? I'd love to know what resonated with you. Until next time, keep believing in love. Keep believing in second chances. Keep believing that the right person is worth the wait and the fight. I'll see you in the next story, Two Hearts.